around. This is, are you standing up for the people? And we're not doing any lies out there, fake news and all of that. We're saying, look, this benefits people. Are you for it or against it? That's putting them on the record on whose side they're on.
Right.
It's not teabag nuttery stuff like they're doing, backed up by the Koch brothers, and actual corporate funding of the Tea Party and stuff. This is very different. This is.
I read the news today. Oh boy.
It's time for Nicole Sandler's What's News from NicoleSandler.com and the Progressive Voices Network.
Oh, what a week this has been. Confirmation hearing hell is still in full swing. This was the week that gave us President Obama's sad but powerful farewell address and other tear-jerky moments. And it was also the week that gave us Donald Trump's first press conference in 6 months. We witnessed the newly empowered Republican Party take the first steps towards throwing about
It's time for Nicole Sandler's
insurance rolls, reigniting their old healthcare plan mantra, don't get sick, and if you do get sick, die quickly. Obviously, what's needed now as we head into this weekend are some laughs. Since our soon-to-be president behaves like a 12-year-old adolescent, I thought that today on What's News, we should channel our inner immaturity to have some fun at Dump's expense. So strap in and keep a towel handy.
Oh boy, here come the waterworks.
Shower the people you love with love. Show them the way that you feel.
And, speaking of waterworks,
BuzzFeed News says the British intelligence passed to the Americans claims that during a trip to Russia, Mr. Trump rented a Moscow hotel suite where the Obamas once stayed, and it claims that he paid prostitutes to urinate on the bed.
oh, bullshit. Like, we're supposed to believe Trump has started paying people who do work for him? Party. There's a high probability this story is bullshit, but the fact that it's plausible bullshit is a terrifying statement about what our nation has come to. No one would ever believe that President Obama paid anyone to urinate on him. He's got people who do that for free. But we absolutely believe that Donald Trump is petty enough to hire someone to take a whiz in any bed his predecessor has slept in. In fact, if we believe doing something nasty and petty is what gets Trump hard, then his late-night tweets about Alec Baldwin make a lot more sense.
Oh, April showers may come your way.
There's a story came out in the last 24 hours, and pardon the expression, it is juicy. And I'm not going to validate that report by sharing the most salacious details from it. Even the detail everyone's talking about, okay? You might call it the number one detail. I think this is just an unfortunate leak.
I will tell you that not within the meeting, but outside of the meeting, somebody released it. It should never have been number one.
Yeah, I don't think this is a good time to be talking about releasing a number one.
Russia can help us fight ISIS, which, by the way, is number one tricky.
Interestingly enough, number one tricky is also the name of the Russian escort agency Trump uses.
Russia can help us fight ISIS, which, by the way, is number one tricky.
Number one tricky, by the way. The official name for what those women did in that Russian hotel room. Allegedly. Allegedly. We have our best researcher working on it. She's a real whiz. And one thing is for sure. The president-elect is a Goldwater Republican who truly believes in trickle-down. He has the respect of our emergency service workers who gave his plane a water salute. Trump has even denied allegations like this before, in the strongest of terms.
No PP.
Even though jokes about this story are a golden opportunity, I won't do it. Not to say the story didn't make a huge splash. It did. It flooded Twitter. I mean, we'll keep you up to date as facts trickle in. And,
Golden lady, I'd like to go there.
We can only hope hope the incontinent sex worker frosting draws attention to the report's less delicious details about Russia manipulating our president. After all, as the old Disney song goes, a spoonful of hooker urine helps the treason claims go down.
But after 8 years of listening to Trump make unsubstantiated claims about Obama's birth certificate, I don't think it matters if this is true or not. Because the fact is, it's out there. And that means, Mr. Trump, you're in trouble.
Watch out where the Huskies go. Don't you eat that yellow snow.
That's making a huge mess. And I know I'm being a wet blanket, but this is reporting on this is the worst kind of yellow journalism.
But damn, Sam, I love a woman that rains.
We can only hope the incontinent sex worker frosting draws attention to the report's less delicious details about Russia manipulating our president. After all, as the old Disney song goes, a spoonful of hooker urine helps the treason claims go down.
And that's it for today's juvenile edition of What's News. I'm Nicole Sandler for NicoleSandler.com and the Progressive Voices Network.
Sleep, pretty darling, do not cry. And I will sing a lullaby.
Mary had a little man. The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
But you're a panther.
Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
Oh, yeah, it's Friday, you bastards.
You know, girls, it's great to live in a democracy today.
Today.
Where freedom is everywhere.
Today.
But girls, we often take this freedom for granted.
Don't do it.
Freedom of speech.
That.
Freedom of thought.
What?
And freedom of action.
Oh.
But you know, gals.
What?
Just because a bunch of men signed that Declaration of Independence in 1776 doesn't mean that freedom was for men alone.
Oh, no?
Oh, no, you take Tom Jefferson.
Okay.
Ben Franklin.
Yeah, no.
John Hancock.
Adorable.
There's a hell of a guy for you right there.
Cutie pie.
All these men had wives.
They did.
They probably had a few broads on the side, too.
Russian ones.
These women wanted freedom just as much as their men did.
Yes, passports,
But gals,
please.
I wonder, do we? I think it's time that we women thought about it a bit.
Okay.
Hell, I think it's time we did something about it.
Hell.
So come on, fellow females of the 20th century.
21st.
Be glad that you're an American.
I'm glad.
Claim your freedom.
Freedom.
And attention.
Oi.
Pledge allegiance.
Allegiance. Get used to waking up and checking what insane thing POTUS has tweeted in the wee hours of the morning. God, this is like having an incontinent pet. Every day you wake up, you say, oh God, I hope there's not some awful mess. And every day, it's an awful mess. It's an awful, awful mess. Just face this. Twitter is Donald Trump's version of getting up in the middle of the night and taking a crap on everybody else. Oh, yes. Oh, my God. You know, he did this long rant. Did you see this on his Twitter? I'm telling you, the media, that we have to stop. We have to stop paying attention to what he's doing there. But, you know, today there was this very long rant about how the Russian blackmail allegations were false, and he wrapped it up with giant caps. Fake news! ! Russia says nothing exists. Should be good enough for everybody, right? Russia says, right? It should be good enough for everybody. Can't get a better character reference than Vladimir Putin, can you? You know, I think this is the first conspiracy theory he doesn't believe, which probably means this is the first conspiracy theory that's true. I mean, they're the original birther, getting his I don't know, credibility from Vladimir Putin. So let's see. I want proof I'm not being blackmailed. I quote the blackmailer. Wow. Wow. And then he said, this is the quote, probably released by, and again, he puts the word intelligence in quotes, in you know, these dismissive quotes, in the air quotes, right? Probably released by, quote, intelligence, even knowing there is no proof and never will be. Can I just say this? The Russians are not the only people that do, dossiers on U.S. presidents. They're just not. Donald. And then he tweeted, and this is it, quote, my people will have a full report on hacking within 90 days. I'm surprised it would take them 90 days to write fake news, but 90 days is apparently what it takes to make up your own facts if you're in Trump land. Kellyanne Conway, mysteriously missing from the TV. She was humiliated 8 ways to Sunday by the DNIJ Clapper, by him. By James Comey, who, by the way, yesterday said, yeah, I'm the one that told Trump about the dossier. I'm the one that briefed him. I did tell it to him. I actually said it to him. It's not just that it was an addendum, like he said. He's a liar. And yes, and I know this because I was the briefer. I was the one in the room who briefed him. And so now, all of a sudden, mysteriously, today on the front page, or the opinion page of the Wall Street Journal, there's this opinion piece written that says Comey ought to step down. Get rid of him. Isn't that something? Now, you know, Comey is being investigated by the Inspector General at the Justice Department. And Comey welcomes this because Comey knows what I think I know. And that is that the Inspector General is the best person to release the facts. And the facts about Comey is probably such that he's investigating Rudy Giuliani for being the person who actually went into the FBI, talked to current agents, broke the law, and released, information to the press, especially Fox News, on the TV saying, oh, wait, a big surprise is coming. You just wait. Just wait. I know a big bombshell's headed your way. So Comey is probably investigating this. And what's really interesting is if the Wall Street Journal has its way, and some Democrats, by the way, who are rooting for Comey to be removed, guess who your new FBI director is going to be? Rudy freaking Giuliani. Smarten up. Oh, my God. Already he's going to be in charge of our cyber advisory group. Rudy Giuliani is going to be in charge of our cyber advisory group for Trump. All that ensures the safety of is Rudy Giuliani and his income stream. Yes, this whole thing gives Watergate a whole new meaning, doesn't it? Yes, and a worse one. Watergate, everybody. This is Watergate, where leaks and yellow journalism is in play. Yeah. So, I gotta tell you, this is an amazing. This has been such a everything's moving so freaking fast now. It's amazing. It's almost as if we have a government. It's almost as if we have a working Congress. Wow. Who knew that they did anything? All of a sudden, they're doing everything. Passed 2 bills already. Budget reconciliation bills. One in the Senate, one in the House, with provisions to, destroy Obamacare. This, of course, without a replacement. Did you see Marco Rubio last night? We'll go over his town hall. I will debunk it personally. I take great pleasure in debunking the Paul Ryan because he's so easy. It's like I could do it in my sleep almost, the way that, Trump wets the bed or, tweets or takes a crap on other people in the middle of the night. That's how easy it is for me to debunk a Ryan. Ryan has been telling the same lie since 2012. So, therefore, not much research necessary. But let's just put it in a nutshell for you because this is where we're going to go later. Is Medicare broke, as he said last night? Will high-risk pools work? What will it mean for people who have pre-existing conditions and or chronic illnesses? Did that, done that, been there. So that's easy for me. And, of course, who actually quietly killed Obamacare while Ted Cruz was on the Senate floor reading Green Eggs and Ham? Who actually did it? Wasn't Cruz. Wasn't Cruz. He was showboating because he was running for president. But so was Rubio, and Rubio did something. So it'll be fun. It'll be fun and easy to debunk. Meantime, it's Friday, and I want to show you something that you're not going to get to see for at least the next year or two. Dignity, class, something worth honoring, tradition, bold moments, brave people, brave hearts, people who actually work to help the middle class change democracy for the better, make it more open, make it more accessible, make it more ethical. You know, the people that actually did that stuff. So yesterday, I got to tell you, just as we were starting the show, I had it on the TV, but I couldn't get it to you fast enough because I couldn't do, the editing and to get it up on the screen at the same time. But this was a beautiful, beautiful moment. And because it's a Friday, I thought that I should share a beautiful last fleeting moment of what democracy used to be as of next Friday. Okay? Because President Obama wanted to give Joe Biden something really special, something that Joe Biden would never forget, something that honored his service to this nation over the course of 50 years and a very traumatic life. I don't know if you know, Joe Biden lost his children and his wife in a car accident when he was young and just first time running for senator. He regrouped. He became a fabulous senator. He met Jill Biden, who does nothing but educate the children of the United States of America. She's got a PhD in education. She's a wonderful woman who raised his remaining child, had other children with him, and they've been married ever since. He's a guy I know who once yelled at me in public, and I deserved it. He yelled at me because I asked him, why don't you call President Bush what he is, a liar? And Joe Biden said to me, Randy, why do you have to pick the hardest thing to do? And I said, what do you mean? The guy is manufacturing intelligence. Who was curveball? These are private reports. This isn't our intelligence community. These are our interlopers who are putting out fake intelligence so that we would go to war in Iraq. And the president got on the TV and Cheney got on the TV and Condi got on the TV and said, we don't want the smoking gun to be a mushroom cloud, and led us into this horrible, horrible war. We're losing our kids. And of course, Beau Biden was serving. And so he said, the reason why I tell you this is the hardest thing to do is because no matter what you think, President Bush is the president of the United States, and you don't call the president a liar. That was another era. That was the Biden era. Before Joe Wilson in the State of the Union screamed out at President Obama, you lie, and opened the floodgates for the disrespectful nature with which Americans were permitted to treat this president. Donald Trump became the birther-in-chief. That's why I say this is the first conspiracy theory Donald Trump doesn't believe. It's an amazing thing. Anyway, President Obama surprised Joe Biden yesterday by giving him our nation's highest civilian honor, the Medal of Freedom, which made me look really damn bad because Howard's birthday was Wednesday. And what the hell did I get him?
Lots of love.
Mm-hmm. Hey, man, if I got you the Medal of Freedom, you wouldn't even wear it. You would say it's heavy. It's very heavy. But this was really touching. So here's just a couple of minutes from this day that you need to hold in your head and envision when Trump becomes president and awards this Medal of Freedom to his friend, Vladimir Putin. So here, keep this in your memory.
As I have already delivered my farewell address, I will try to be relatively brief. But I just want to get some folks together to pay tribute to somebody who's not only been by my side for the duration of this amazing journey, but somebody who has devoted his entire professional life to service to this country. This also gives the internet one last chance to talk about our bromance. For the final time as president, I am pleased to award our nation's highest civilian honor, the Presidential Medal of Freedom. For the first and only time in my presidency, I will bestow this medal with an additional level of veneration, an honor my three most recent successors reserved for only three others: Pope John Paul II, President Ronald Reagan, and General Colin Powell. Ladies and gentlemen, I am proud to award the Presidential Medal of Freedom with distinction to my brother, Joseph Robinette Biden, Jr. Will the aide please read the citation?
Vice President Joseph R. Biden, Jr. In a career of public service spanning nearly half a century, Vice President Joseph R. Biden, Jr. has left his mark on almost every part of our nation. A grateful nation thanks Vice President Joseph R. Biden, Jr. for his lifetime of service on behalf of the United States of America.
Wow, that was really beautiful. I have to say that just moves me. You know, I have to go to a break. His middle name is Robinette, and I don't want to go there. 22 after.
All things Randy at randyrhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
Now that Trump's on his way to the White House, how long do you think it's going to take him and his Wall Street cronies to completely wreck our economy? This Trump administration is greedy, full of avarice, and awful, and the damage they're going to do to the economy will become legend. They are going to make the financial crisis of 2008 look like a pool party. And once again, working class Americans, you're going to get soaked. And that's why now more than ever, it's time to diversify your investment portfolio. Gold's low correlation with stocks and bonds can help you in times of uncertainty. Just call my friends at ITM Trading today, get a free gold kit, and learn why gold survives every government, every currency, and every economic crisis. Call ITM Trading at 1-888-OWN-GOLD for guidance from their precious metals experts. They've helped tens of thousands of people navigate this market, and they have the best reputation in this industry. So call 1-888-OWN-GOLD, 1-888-OWN-GOLD.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1968. That was the day Johnny Cash performed at Folsom Prison. The Man in Black had played numerous free prison concerts before. Country music legend Merle Haggard remembered seeing him perform at San Quentin a decade earlier. Columbia Records recorded the two concerts at Folsom for release. It was these recordings that many credit with revitalizing the career of Johnny Cash. His daughter Roseanne believes the 1968 appearance signified her father's own personal liberation, saying, quote, "That was the moment he came into the light, when he embodied who he really was." Performing with the Tennessee Three, June Carter, Carl Perkins, and the Statler Brothers, Cash hit the charts with Folsom Prison Blues, which sold more than 3 million copies at the time. He also took the opportunity to advocate for prison reform and prisoners' rights, providing testimony on the subject in the early 1970s. His brother told the BBC in an interview, quote, he identified with the prisoners because many of them had served their sentences and had been rehabilitated in some cases, but were still kept there for the rest of their lives. He felt a great empathy for those people. Cash might not have actually shot a man in Reno, but he always sided with the underdog. His songs highlighted the working man's life, from the sharecroppers, coal miners, and auto workers to railroaders, truckers, and prison chain gangs. Cash always gave an unromanticized view of hard living and hard labor, as well as interracial and class solidarity.
I hear the train a-comin', it's rolling around a bend, and I ain't seen the sunshine since I don't know when. I'm stuck in Folsom Prison.
Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com.
Keeps a rolling on down.
For a commercial-free, on-demand, whenever, wherever listening experience, visit randyrhodes.com for your personal premium podcast today.
I think it was disgraceful that the intelligence agencies allowed any information that turned out to be so false and fake out. And that's something that Nazi Germany would have done and did do. As far as BuzzFeed, which is a failing pile of garbage, writing it, I think they're going to suffer the consequences. They already are. No,
our news
not
organization.
You. Not
Can
you.
you give us a chance?
Your organization
You are
is
attacking
terrible.
our news organization.
Your organization
Can you give us a
is
chance?
terrible. I told many people, be careful, because you don't want to see yourself on television. Cameras all over the place. And again, not just Russia, all over. Does anyone really believe that story? I'm also very much of a germaphobe, by the way. As far as hacking, I think it was Russia, but I think we also get hacked by other countries and other people. The Democratic National Committee was totally open to be hacked. They did a very poor job. If Putin likes Donald Trump, guess what, folks? That's called an asset, not a liability. Now, I don't know that I'm going to get along
the Russian asset.
with Vladimir Putin. I hope I do, but there's a good chance I won't. And if I don't, do you honestly believe that Hillary would be tougher on Putin than me?
Everybody
we could
does.
make deals in Russia very easily if we wanted to. I just don't want to because I think that would be a conflict.
Will you release your tax returns to prove what you're saying about no deals in Russia?
Well, I'm not releasing the tax returns because, as you know, they're under audit.
But every president since the 70s has had a required audit from the IRS. The last 6 have released him. But as president, sir, as you're
The only
taking
one that cares
office,
about my tax returns are the reporters, okay?
you don't think the American public is concerned?
Everyone cares.
I won. I mean, I became president. We don't want to own it. We don't want to own it politically. They own it right now.
Obamacare.
So the easiest thing would be to let it implode in 17, and believe me, we'd get pretty much whatever we wanted, but it would take a long time. It'll be repeal and replace. It will be essentially simultaneously. I appointed today the head secretary of the Veterans Administration, David Shulkin. He will do a truly great job. One of the commitments I made is that we're going to straighten out the whole situation for our veterans. We're going to build a wall. I could wait about a year and a half until we finish our negotiations with Mexico. I don't feel like waiting a year or a year and a half. We're going to start building. Mexico, in some form, and there are many different forms, will reimburse us, whether it's a tax or whether it's a payment. Probably less likely that it's a payment, but it will happen. These papers are all just a piece of the many, many companies that are being put into trust to be run by my 2 sons, and I hope at the end of 8 years I'll come back and I'll say, oh, you did a good job. Otherwise, if they do a bad job, I'll say, you're fired. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye.
Sir, you did not answer whether...
Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye. Don't you wish that was really a goodbye? I really wish that was a real goodbye. I would love to see a real goodbye. And I would love to see it before next Friday. A lot of Democrats now are saying they're not going to attend the inaugural. And it looks like, I think, what was it? Like 20 buses were bringing people in for the inaugural, but 200 buses were bringing people in for the march against Trump the day after the inaugural. So, and who did he get to play? Is that, did we ever confirm? I think, I don't know. I think he got a Bruce Springsteen cover band, I swear to God, as the talent for the inaugural. Yep. Which might explain why Barack Obama played Bruce Springsteen at his farewell in Chicago. He played real Bruce Springsteen. I think Trump got a cover band to play for his inaugural. I mean, it's so amazing. And I have to tell you, with all this going on with this dossier, oh, and by the way, I have to tell you, MI6, the British intelligence agency, has vouched for the veracity and the credibility of Chris Steele, the MI6 officer, who's now in hiding, by the way, who created the document for Orbis, the professional opposition research company that was hired by Donald Trump's opposition of Republican ilk. Okay, so we don't know exactly which campaign hired Chris Steele's Orbis company to do the opposition research on Donald Trump. It could have been Marco Rubio. Or it could have been, who else had a lot of money? It could have been, maybe Ted Cruz, but I doubt it. But it could have been any of the people who were running for president against Donald Trump on the GOP side that paid for this report. Because now we know that this was done by, at the behest of the GOP. Okay, this was not a Democratic opposition research thing. This was his own party. And so today in The Guardian, which is a British newspaper. They deal with whether or not Chris Steele is a reliable intelligence spy, you know, whether he's done good work in the past. And there's this whole big article about how not just the people that worked with him, but the head of MI6 currently says that this guy, you know, is completely and utterly reliable. Yeah, they said at his press briefing on Wednesday, the president-elect dared the world's media to scrutinize the 35 pages of claims before throwing down a challenge. Where's the proof? No one has any. Case closed. But the rush to trample all over the dossier and its contents, one key question remains. Why had American intelligence agencies felt it necessary to provide a compendium of the claims to President Barack Obama and President-elect Trump? What was so weighty about it that they felt the need to include it in the intelligence briefing? And the answer to that, they write, is in the credibility of its apparent author, the ex-MI6 officer, Christopher Steele, the quality of the sources he has, and the quality of people who are prepared to vouch for him. In all these respects, the 53-year-old is in credit. On Thursday night, as the former spy was in hiding, having fled his home in the southeast of England, former colleagues rallied to defend him. One described him as a very credible, sober, cautious, meticulous professional with a formidable record. The former foreign official, who has known Steele for 25 years and considers him a friend, said, quote, "The idea his work is fake or a cowboy operation is false, completely untrue. Chris is an experienced and highly regarded professional. He is not the sort of person who will simply pass on gossip." The official added, quote, "If he puts something in a report, he believes there's sufficient credibility in it for it to be worth considering. Chris is a very straight guy. He could not have survived in his job that he was in had he been prone to flights of fancy or doing things in an ill-considered way." And that is the way the CIA and the FBI, not to mention the British government, regarded him too. And that's why they put it in the intel briefing to both President Obama and POTUS. And we know that that was presented to him verbally now because James Comey said, "I was the one who told him." All of a sudden today, Wall Street Journal calling for Comey to resign. Some Democrats too. But that would give us FBI Director Rudy Giuliani. So be careful for what you wish for here. Anyway, he was an eminent Russian specialist for the Secret Intelligence Service MI6. The Guardian understands that he focused on Soviet affairs after joining the agency, spent 2 years living in Moscow in the early 90s. This was a period when Russia and the breakup of the Eastern Bloc were still the prime focus for Britain's intelligence agencies, and a successful spell in the region was a good way to get in on it. By all accounts, that's exactly what Steele did, and his interest in Russia did not diminish as he continued to rise up in the ranks, a friend and contemporary of Alex Younger, now the head of MI6. So the current head of MI6 said, this guy had a brilliant career, and it spanned more than 20 years. And he said that Sir John Scarlett needed a trusted senior official to plot a way through the minefield ahead. So they turned to Steele after the poisoning of Alexander Litvinenko. Remember him? He was a polonium guy. Everybody remembers polonium. Well, Alexander Litvinenko was a MI6 Russian spy. And that's why Vlad poisoned him with polonium, and he died slowly and miserably and on television. And after that, that's when they turned to Chris Steele. And so as good as he was, Chris Steele was unlikely to get the top MI6 job after, he exposed that Litvinenko's death was a hit job by Putin himself. That's what Steele uncovered. And the reason why he was never going to become the director of MI6 is because all the focus had switched in Britain and the United States from Russia and Russia's threat to free societies in Europe and the United States, etc., to terrorism, Islamic terrorism. and non-state actors. And so, of course, they said Steele realized that he was a Russia specialist and that his specialty wasn't in demand anymore. And so he decided to leave MI6 in 2009. And that's what he did. And he opened up this firm. And they said that, his business partner, Chris Burrows, and Steele set up this company. It's called Orbis Business Intelligence. And it was busy and it was expanding. And anybody looking to get opposition research about Russia and Trump picked the right place. And they said he had a network of sources deep inside Russia, and some of them dated from his time there in the 90s, and others were cultivated by him later. And they said these individuals had sources of their own, and Steele would have subcontracted some of the Trump investigation to his intermediaries in Moscow. And that's why they talked, because he was paying them. Because now he was free to pay people because he was in private business and he was getting paid. So they said he paid these intermediaries in Moscow, who then reported back to him via secure channels, and that this method of intelligence collection explains some of the odd language. One of our callers said, sometimes if, you read enough, John le Carre novels, I guess, or watch enough Homeland, you start to learn that some operatives use misspellings or do typos to put their mark on it to say, this came from me. And they said that this is probably what happened with this Trump dossier that emerged. They said in a September briefing note, Steele mentions the Alpha Group, a reference to the consortium headed by the powerful oligarch Michael Friedman. And he said the more usual English spelling for Alpha is ALFA, but a Russian native speaker obviously wrote the original material, correctly translated the Russian F into the PH, or the Russian PH into the F. And he said Steele's job was to collate, evaluate, and verify this material before passing it on to his American client, who was Fusion GPS. That was the client. They're a Washington-based political research firm. And they had been hired originally by one of Trump's early opponents before the contract was then taken up by senior Democrats after the Republicans, tried to do opposition. After the nomination was sealed and it was Trump, the GOP stopped paying Orbis, and the Democrats were told that there was all this opposition research, and the Democrats started paying Orbis to continue. And he said, the Foreign Office official who spoke to The Guardian said the Steele dossier was not perfect, but he pointed out that intelligence reports always came with gradations of veracity and included phrases high degree of probability to indicate that this is probably with high confidence true, but, there's always some skepticism. But he said the strongest reason for giving the report credence is that intelligence professionals in the United States take it seriously. They were sufficiently persuaded by the author's track record to find the contents worth passing on to the president and the president-elect. So I could hardly wait for the investigation, is what I was saying to myself. As I said, Rand, there's going to be an investigation. The Intel Committee's certainly going to take this up, aren't they? The answer today, the Intelligence Committee said they will not look into this. The Intelligence Committee is not going to look into Russian hacking or this dossier. They're not going to look into it. Instead, Jason Chaffetz on the House Oversight Committee has decided that the investigation that we need is an investigation of the ethics, the Office of Government Ethics. We need to investigate the ethics department, the OGE, not the Intelligence Committee investigating the Russian dossier or investigating whether or not Donald Trump colluded with Russian assets or with Vladimir Putin's Russia or the FSB or the GSU or any of the Russian intel organizations or any of the Russian oligarchs or any of the people close to Putin or Putin himself. They don't think that's worthy of an investigation. Oh, no. Instead, the House has decided that the number one threat facing this country is ethics in government. That's our problem. So Jason Chaffetz of Utah is threatening the head of the ethics office for criticizing Donald Trump's unwillingness to get rid of all his conflicts of interest through, hiring of his sons, and he won't talk to them, and saying that this is how he's going to have clean hands. And the ethics office criticized his plan. And now Jason Chaffetz sends a letter declaring that the biggest threat on democracy, of course, is ethics. So he sent a letter over to the ethics committee, to the Committee on Oversight, and the Office of Government Ethics, saying, now check this out, quote, the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform is the principal oversight committee of the House of Representatives and may at any time investigate any matter as set forth in House Rule 10. And don't forget, we finance your office. And if we withhold financing, the Office of Government Ethics doesn't exist. He's literally threatening the ethics guy. Richard Painter, who we played you yesterday, saying, hey, he may think that there's one law that says he can't be, he can't be prosecuted for conflicts of interest. And there is a law that says he can't be prosecuted. But hey, the House can impeach him for misdemeanors. The House can do whatever it wants, and the Senate can can remove him. And then, of course, you got your elections. And then, of course, you got like a million other laws like bribery laws, collusion laws, all kinds of laws that do apply to the president. So let's not say that, he's got a free pass to do whatever he wants. So Richard Painter, who said that yesterday, he was the ethics lawyer in the Bush administration, which makes me smile every time I say ethics Bush administration. But wait, it's going to seem like Bush was very ethical after Trump, right? But he said, obviously, Jason Chaffetz is trying to punish Mr. Schaub over at OGE for criticizing Mr. Trump. Well, I thought that the head of the ethics department in our government's job title would be to criticize whether or not the president is ethical and acting in an ethical way. I would think that's their job description. He said, attacks on the ethics office are rare. They are obviously very upset. The Office of Government Ethics is leaning on Trump and not willing to jam through his nominees. This is political retaliation. They said Jason Chaffetz's bizarre and fawning devotion to President-elect Donald Trump is beneath the committee he oversees and an affront to the trust his constituents have placed in him. That's a Tyler Law said that. He's the Democratic Committee spokesperson and issued a statement about it. And the chief ethics guy for Bush said, obviously they're blackmailing the ethics department. I mean, this is incredible. Just incredible. So, welcome to the new age. This is just, they're not going to investigate these intelligence matters that concern whether or not Donald Trump colluded and his campaign colluded and Paul Manafort colluded and Carter Page colluded and General Flynn colluded with Putin, when there's photographic evidence of him sitting at a dinner as a guest of honor right to the right of Vladimir Putin on behalf of the Russian TV propaganda machine RT. This is stunning. No, we're not going to investigate it. They said, not going to bother. Nothing to see here. Move along. Key Senate committee won't probe possible Trump-Russia collusion. The development raises questions about who in Congress, if anyone, will investigate the matter. Who, if anyone, will investigate the matter?
To speak to Randy, call now, you bastards. 561-270-3844.
Hello.
The Randi Rhodes Air Force.
The Leslie Marshall Show on the Progressive Voices Network. Joining us now is Deputy Executive Director at Families USA, Craig Obeg. Let's talk about what really would happen if we repealed Obamacare. What happens if they do this? Because it would seem that they're going to do this. What happens? We have 20 million people that, whether through the exchanges or the Medicaid expansion, have insurance as a result of this great legislation.
And those people have that insurance because of changes in the rules and because the Affordable Care Act made insurance more affordable for them. And what we're seeing the Congress talking about is repealing the very elements of the law that enable people to afford that insurance. So you're looking at people who, when they get sick, we go back to the old days when if you lose your insurance with your employer, you have the potential to remain uninsured. We've got 30 million people who, 82% of whom are in working families, who could see their insurance taken away. The premiums would increase by more than 50% for millions of Americans. We're talking about reverse Robin Hood in a way that is really unconscionable, with reducing the tax credits that enable people to own insurance, abolishing those, so you're essentially increasing taxes on low-income people by a few $1,000s while you're providing $500 billion tax cut to people who are more well off. So it's not a pretty picture. Nobody's ever said that the Affordable Care Act was perfect, but what it did was enabled a lot of people to afford insurance who didn't have it. And these are issues that have been ongoing for years. It was interesting just the other day, actually, a couple conservative commentators, very well known on healthcare, Joseph Antos and James Capretta, had a piece where they actually talked about some of the scenarios here. And, one of the things that we all care a lot about is pre-existing conditions and what's going to happen. The minute you're born, practically you have a pre-existing condition. And so what they, in their analysis, these conservatives said was, if you are repealing without a replacement, essentially you've got a prescription for increasing costs for people, because you can't pretend to be keeping pre-existing condition protections without a lot of the other provisions of the law. That's just not going to work. And you've got a number of organizations, the American Cancer Society, the American Heart Association, American Diabetes Association, who just sent a letter, Multiple Sclerosis Society, Lung Association, who expressed concerns about that as well.
The Leslie Marshall Show, Monday to Friday on the Progressive.
Well, if you're like me, you probably have a few questions about it. It is pretty strange. It's pretty strange to put something like that out with such little information right before an election. In fact, it's not just strange, it's unprecedented, and it is deeply troubling, because voters deserve to get full and complete facts. And so we've called on Director Comey to explain everything right away, put it all out on the table, right? Now, of course, Donald Trump is already making up lies about this. He is doing his best to confuse, mislead, and discourage the American people. I think it's time for Donald Trump to stop fear-mongering, to stop disgracing himself, to stop attacking our democracy. We can't let him get away with this, can we?
And he did. And nobody wants to investigate, anything to do with the Russians helping him, but they do want to investigate Comey and what he did before the election when he released this letter. And Comey, listen, here's my position on this. Comey needs to stay there for all the reasons I just told you. First of all, Comey is the one who briefed Donald Trump about this dossier. So Comey is probably the only person in the government that will ever look into it. You really think Jeff Sessions, as the new attorney general, is going to look into Russian hacking? He would have to recuse himself, first of all, okay? There's nobody. You think Rex Tillerson at the State Department is going to go over to Russia and say, hey, is this dossier really true? Really? Did he hire some crazy hookers? Did he do that? And were they, sterilely urinating on the bed? Because he says he's a germaphobe, but we all know urine is sterile, so that makes sense, right? Okay, so what's interesting is now there's the Inspector General. The Inspector General, Michael Horowitz, is going to investigate Comey. And I welcome that. That is a perfect thing to have happen. Comey welcomes it too. Comey said, this is a statement. You have to listen very carefully to how he, because this is a man that, parses. He parses carefully. He's a lawyer. He's the Attorney General on top of it. He's the FBI Director on top of it. And now he's under investigation. So this is very parsed. So listen, I am grateful to the Department of Justice's IG for taking on this review. He's professional and independent. The FBI will cooperate fully with him and his office. I hope very much he is able to share his conclusions and observations with the public, because everyone will benefit from thoughtful evaluation and transparency regarding this matter. Sounds to me like Comey knows the news cannot come from him. Also, according to this article in the Washington Post, written by Mike Zapotowski, he explains that, yes, Giuliani is being investigated. Lawmakers and others had called previously for the Inspector General to investigate the FBI's actions regarding the Clinton probe ahead of the election, because they allege that Comey violated longstanding policies with his communication about the case, and that information had leaked inappropriately, perhaps to former New York City Mayor Rudy W. Giuliani. Thank God. That is the first time I read it in a paper, that my theory was correct, that it was Rudy all along. And that's why Comey is grateful. Comey is grateful because Comey knows it can't come from him. It can't come from him because he has somehow been goaded into releasing that October 28th letter saying, oh, well, I'm still looking at her emails. I have to update Congress. Now, the idea that Comey should resign, I know it's a tempting thing to just say, oh, he should leave and that's the end of our problem. But then you'd end up with FBI Director Rudy W. Giuliani. Oh, my God. You have to be at least as smart as the Russians are, who are guiding all this. No, they are investigating whether or not something was going on inside the FBI with Giuliani interfering, and whether or not Giuliani it cannot come from Comey. And Comey, that's why Comey is saying, please, I welcome this. Please do this, and do it as quickly as you can, and tell the public what you see, and tell the public, share your conclusions, share your observations with the public. Everyone will benefit from thoughtful evaluation and transparency regarding this matter. Everyone. So there obviously is going to be at least an investigation by the Justice Department's Inspector General, at least until Jeff Sessions gets his hands on the FBI. As Attorney General, Jeff Sessions is the boss of the FBI. But if the Inspector General has an ongoing investigation, I really don't know that he can, quash it without people, in the press, just freaking out about it. Now, of course, Donald Trump could just directly fire Comey. And then he would have to fire the Inspector General as well. And that would be a Watergate scenario. That would be a Friday Night Massacre, is what that would be. Saturday Night Massacre? Yeah, Saturday. Happened on a Saturday. I just know it's Friday. It's what's in my head. So that's where we are. And I would suggest people, you think a little higher, a little more sophisticatedly, if that's an adjective, a little more forward, be a little more forward looking, be a little more, curious, be a little more strategic, be a little more, like I said, sophisticated in your thinking about whether or not Comey should step down. You want FBI Director Rudy Giuliani, when Rudy Giuliani's name finally appeared in the newspaper in conjunction with Comey's investigation and what happened at the FBI? I say no. But that's just me. Paul in Woodinville, Washington.
Randy, do you think I suggested this to Stephanie Miller a couple?
Oh, how is my hua? Mama, yeah.
She's great, of course.
I haven't heard from her. I got to send her an email.
You got to give her a call.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I said that I think our government's been overthrown, and she agreed with me. But at the time, this was, I think, even before Christmas, we said it with some hyperbole, I think, in our voices. I'm not so sure it is hyperbolic to say that. I think our government maybe has been overthrown, and I think that there's so much.
It's definitely
so much more.
It's definitely been taken over in a hostile takeover. I mean, that can't be, discredited. There are a lot of words we could use that wouldn't be legitimately, dictionarily true. Like coup and stuff like that. It means it insinuates violence. There was no violence here. But that we were taken over in a hostile takeover by 26% of the voters and an electorate that was being fed a steady diet of Russian propaganda, and that Donald Trump, obviously had, named Michael Flynn his national security advisor, and Michael Flynn sat next to Putin at a dinner for RT-TV, and that this report clearly says RT was engaged in propaganda, that they had, used botniks to, retweet his tweets and to spread all his garbage, all over the country and put it into news feeds and every other thing. And Breitbart is, the alt-right. And, so it's a hostile takeover is what it is.
Well, I think that there must be so much more out there factually that we would be aghast to learn.
Yeah.
This isn't like, oh, yeah, most of the story is out. Donald Trump's a slime ball, but he just kind of got lucky. No, there's a whole lot more. I don't think we're even seeing the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more below that I think we will be shocked if we can't. And that's why he's so defensive.
Yeah.
Because he knows how much more there is.
Well, that's why he's trying to clean house. That's why he's trying to get rid of everybody. That's why he's trying to defund the Office of Government Ethics. That's why he's trying to. Well, listen, when you have senators, key senators on the Intelligence Committee, the chairman Richard Burr from North Carolina, he said yesterday, the Intel Committee will not look into Russia's meddling in the presidential election. He will not look into possible contacts between Moscow and the Trump campaign. I'm reading it verbatim. When the Intelligence Committee refuses to investigate something that all four heads of the intelligence community briefed, not only them, but briefed the incoming president, the outgoing president, the FBI, the Attorney General, all the committee. And they refuse to investigate that, but instead decide to go after the Office of Government Ethics. We have a hostile takeover of our government.
It's to me, it's every bit as bad or worse than 9/11, and it seems as Democrats we're really powerless now with the what they've done in the Senate to stop the filibuster of repealing the Affordable Care Act. That thing they pulled today.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about that on the other side of the break.
The Randi Rhodes Air Force. The Randi Rhodes Show is live on RandiRhodes.com and the free Progressive Voices app for Android and iOS. Visit the App Store or ProgressiveVoices.com now.
Hi, we're back, and everything is possible again. Isn't it beautiful? Well, if you want to keep it this way, buy a stinking podcast. Oh, yes, you have to buy a stinking podcast. And you get that at RandiRhodes.com, where we're open all day, all night long. RandiRhodes.com. Get your stinking podcast.
You're listening to WIN, Workers Independent News, a diversified media enterprises production. I'm Doug Cunningham. On Sunday, January 15th, National Nurses United are making what they say is their first stand to resist harmful policies of the new administration in Washington. It's a national day of action to save health care. National Nurses United co-president Deborah Berger.
We want to save health care for everyone. We want to expand Medicare and Medicaid, and we want to make sure that the politicians are on notice before they take office that we will not tolerate cuts to any kind of health care.
The nurses say actions will happen in 40 cities, including New York, Washington, D.C., San Francisco, Chicago, Fort Worth, Portland, Maine, Columbus, Ohio, and others. More information is available at ourrevolution.com.
We do believe that we are carrying on in the tradition of Bernie Sanders' demand that we actually have a real political revolution. He has always said that him running for president was not about him. It was about changing the political system and making sure that our politicians that are supposed to represent us do their job and speak up for the working people and the poor in this country.
National Nurses United say Medicare and Medicaid should be improved and expanded, not destroyed. OSHA accepted union petitions this week to develop a national federal workplace violence prevention standard. The AFL-CIO, National Nurses United, AFGE, AFSCME, AFT, CWA, SEIU, USW, and the Teamsters all were involved in submitting petitions. Healthcare and social workers testified at an OSHA hearing telling their stories about experiences with workplace violence. AFL-CIO Director of Safety and Health, Peg Seminario, says that workplace violence is a serious safety and health problem that has reached epidemic levels in healthcare and social service settings. She says each year tens of thousands of workers get assaulted on the job. Many of them suffer serious disabling injuries, and some are killed. The AFL-CIO says workplace violence is not part of the job. The labor unions that petitioned OSHA say a strong new federal standard could prevent much of this workplace violence.
Brought to you by the California Teachers Association, 325,000 educators who know quality public schools make a better California for all of us. Information on how California teachers are shaping a stronger future for our kids is online at cta.org. Workers Independent News is proud to be heard on The Union Edge, Labor's Talk Radio. Live nationwide weekdays noon to 3 p.m. at theunionedge.com.
You've been listening to WIN, Workers Independent News. For more information, visit laborradio.org.
Okay, you know what my favorite snack is, right? Yeah, it's jerky, but it's herky jerky. It's not the kind of jerky you can find at the gas station. You can't find it at the supermarket. No. This comes in elk, buffalo, beef, and bacon. Yes, bacon. Hot, mild, 14 other incredible flavors. And the people at Herky Jerky said that it's been a huge hit for Randy listeners, the bacon. So they're going to offer $7 off each pack of bacon jerky for the rest of January, 20% off the regular price. That offer is for you guys only, Randy Rhodes listeners only. Just type in Randy in the promo code section during your checkout and you'll get the discount. There's beef, there's elk, there's venison, and of course there's bacon sticks too. These are the most amazing things you've ever had. The sticks have the right bite to them. The flavor is amazing. They're delicious and they're fresh every single time. The bacon is a slab that you can use on BLTs, put on salads, or just munch right out of the big bag. But now, because you loved it so much, for Randy Rhodes listeners, $7 off each bag at checkout. Type in promo code Randy at Herky Jerky.
I rescued Toast from a shelter in 2011. I love Toast because she's a lazy diva. Toast does whatever she wants, obviously. She's sleeping right now. She's so loving. She's so comforting. When I walked into the shelter, I knew right then that she was special.
Toast, Instagram star, and shelter pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Start yours today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
Mary, how does the man? The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe it. Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
I was a Republican, and I worked for the Reagan and Bush campaigns. Just like you, I was opposed to the Affordable Care Act. When it was passed, I told my wife we would close our business before I complied with this law. Then, at 49, I was given 6 weeks to live with a very curable type of cancer. We offered 3 times the cost of my treatments, which was rejected. They required an insurance card. Thanks to the Affordable Care Act, I'm standing here today alive. Being both a small business person and someone with pre-existing conditions, I rely on the Affordable Care Act to be able to purchase my own insurance. Why would you repeal the Affordable Care Act without a replacement?
Oh, we wouldn't do that. We want to replace it with something better. First of all, I'm glad you're standing here. I mean, really, seriously.
Can I say one thing? I hate to interrupt you. Can I say one thing? I want to thank President Obama from the bottom of my heart because I would be dead if it weren't for him.
We believe that state high-risk pools are a smarter way of guaranteeing coverage for people with pre-existing conditions. We had a really good one in Wisconsin. Utah had a great one. I was talking with a congresswoman from Washington today who was telling me how good their state high-risk pool is. What I mean when I say this is about 8% of all the people under 65 have that kind of pre-existing condition.
What?
My mother-in-law, cancer, she had melanoma in her 20s, breast cancer in her 50s, ovarian cancer in her 60s. People just have these things. And we don't want people to go poor or go bankrupt because this thing happens to them. So we obviously want to have a system where they can get affordable coverage without going bankrupt because they get sick. But we can do that without destroying the rest of the healthcare system for everybody else. That's the point I'm trying to make. What we should have done was fix what was broken in healthcare without breaking what was working in healthcare, and that's what, unfortunately, Obamacare did. So, by financing state high-risk pools to guarantee people get affordable coverage when they have a pre-existing condition like yourself, what you're doing is you're dramatically lowering the price of insurance for everybody else.
Except for the person with the chronic or pre-existing condition, because, how do I know this? We've had high-risk pools before the ACA. We had high-risk pools that were suggested as the viable alternative, just like he's saying now, to the Affordable Care Act's ban on pre-existing condition exclusions. And what happened? Okay, here's what happened. 35 state-based high-risk pools had experience with the National Pre-Existing Condition Insurance Plan. That's what he's talking about, okay? And what happened was the high-risk pools charged premiums that were 250% more. 250% more than those charged to healthy beneficiaries in the individual insurance market. And they only paid 53% of your bills on average. In addition, to the high premiums, the enrollees in state-based high-risk pools faced annual deductibles of as high as $25,000. And the annual coverage limits were as low as $75,000, meaning once you hit $75,000, which is half of your operation, they stop paying out. So you had $25,000 out of pocket plus 250% higher premiums than a healthy person paid. Not 5%, not 10% more, not 12% more, not 10, but not even 117% more. 250% more you paid in premiums. And then you had a $25,000 deductible, and then your costs were capped at $75,000. Because of the high premium costs and the limited benefits associated with the high risk pool coverage, people either delayed their care didn't have that, what's the word? Forgo, what's the past tense? Foregone their care? I don't know if that's the word. Foregone their care? And of course they died. They had terrible, terrible outcomes, these enrollees, and many of them still accrued medical debt despite having this insurance. That's what a high-risk pool insurance plan looks like. And that's why high-risk plans in lieu of marketplace and Medicaid expansion results in greater state and federal costs, okay? Fewer people with pre-existing conditions are able to obtain coverage, and coverage that fails to meet the often greater needs of people with chronic conditions. Affording coverage would be particularly difficult for people with incomes below 400% of the federal poverty level, who accounted for 80%. What do you say, 8%? He's missing the mark by a factor of 10. They accounted for 80% of the uninsured population with pre-existing conditions prior to the implementation of the Affordable Care Act. And here's why. When you concentrate the sickest people into a pool, it results in greater expenses to administrators and consumers. It drives these plans to impose severe coverage limits like the $75,000 max. Okay. And it negates the entire benefit of having any insurance. And so many people don't even bother. They just die. And only the very sickest and most expensive individuals are willing to even try to pay these high premiums to try to get the coverage. And that increases costs even more. This was evident in the high risk pools in many, many states. Kansas, California, where enrollment in the high-risk pools declined from 2009 to 2011, but the premium totals and the medical reimbursement costs increased even with the coverage limits at $75,000 max in place. Now you look at the Affordable Care Act, and it spreads risk across the broad population, and it decreases the per-person cost, and it allows for more affordable and comprehensive coverage for all. High-risk pools, by their very nature, just even being called high-risk pool, if me being I would be in the high-risk pool. I wouldn't be able to even afford it. And if they cap my benefits at $75,000, my God, I pissed through $75,000 like the first month when I was being diagnosed. Unbelievable. And everybody out there with a chronic condition knows what it's like to have constant care and medication and pharmaceuticals and testing. And, you're on this drug, now you need liver tests, or, just chronic conditions, not even major illnesses. God help you if you have a major illness with this high risk pool scenario. All right, let's go through some more of what he said yesterday, because I cannot believe the lies that he told. Let's see. Let's start with Medicare is going broke.
Donald Trump during the campaign said about you, you want to knock Medicare way down. Mr. Trump said, I wouldn't call it
the most articulate description of my plan.
No, I'm going to let you respond. Sure. He said, I'm not going to cut it, and I'm not going to raise ages, and I'm not going to do all the things that they, meaning you, want to do. Now, you say Medicare needs to be changed or it won't survive. What are you going to say to President-elect Trump to change his mind?
We've had a couple of conversations about it. Look, we don't all agree on everything. I think people kind of know that. Here's the issue with Medicare. More than half of the money going to Medicare right now is money we borrow. Medicare goes bankrupt in the next decade.
Okay, those are two false statements.
Medicare, along with Social Security, the two most important programs the federal government has, in my opinion. Statement. I mean, when after my dad died, my grandma moved in with my mom and myself, living on Medicare and Social Security, battling Alzheimer's. I watched that program do amazing things for my own family. Mm-hmm. So know that we want to make sure that this program is successful. Mm-hmm. But if we want this program to succeed, we have to save it from the insolvency and the bankruptcy that's coming.
Okay, there is no bankruptcy or insolvency coming. Let's explain Medicare. Medicare is made up in 4 parts. There's Part A, B, C, and D. Okay, Part A, that covers payments to hospitals. Part B, that covers payments to doctors. Part C is your ability to buy private plans. Medicare Advantage, remember that? You get a free gym membership, sometimes get pair of sneakers. You remember that? That was the invention of George W. Bush because he wanted the market to compete with Medicare. So there's Medicare Advantage. That's Part C. And your Medicare, dollars can go towards buying a Medicare Advantage plan if you prefer that. So his whole argument, which he continues to make, I want competition in the marketplace. I could have let the whole clip play and he would say that, I want people who have Medicare to be able to go into the private market is already there. That's Medicare Part C. Okay. And Medicare Part D is the prescription drug coverage, which, by the way, they will not allow to negotiate with Big Pharma so that the Part D payments for pharmaceuticals goes down through a negotiation with Big Pharma. The Republicans wrote into the Affordable Care Act that Congress may not and Medicare may not negotiate with Big Pharma down the prices of pharmaceuticals for Medicare Part D recipients on their behalf. All right. So how are these funded? These are funded by a payroll tax. That goes into a trust fund, just like Social Security. That's Medicare Part A. The physician and the prescription drug parts, that's paid with general government revenue. And those are things that George Bush wanted. And those are things Republicans like. When he talks about Medicare going bankrupt and Medicare going bankrupt, he's joining a long, long line of Medicare GOP members. Okay, we've had this argument ever since Medicare became the law in 1965. They were saying in 1965 that by 1970, quote, the trust fund would be exhausted in fiscal year 1973. In 1980, they said it will be exhausted in 1994. In 1990, the insolvency date was 2003. It's not happened. It's a 1.45% tax on wages for employers and employees each. That pays into Part A. All you need to do is raise it for high income earners. Oh, wait, we did that with Obamacare. And that's what saved Medicare from insolvency. This is an old, tired, worn out scare tactic that the Republicans love to trot out every time they want the marketplace to have its way with you and your health concerns and issues. Every time. Now, they're sitting there going, it's going to implode, everything's going to implode. You know, let me tell you, Obamacare has improved Medicare's financing. The law expanded Medicare funding. It added a 0.9% tax on earnings over $200,000 for singles and $250,000 for married couples. It cut the growth of spending in Medicare, and the savings and the additional tax is what has shored up Medicare. So that is it's an old lie. And that's why I said, you know, you could, the second he said it last night, I go, got this. I don't even have to look it up. I mean, I got this paperwork. I've always had it. Okay. Now, the idea that Obamacare is imploding in 2017 and that, you know, they're doing us a favor, meaning the Democrats, they're doing, us Democrats a favor by inserting themselves into this terrible, terrible failing. Do you know why the premiums are going up? Do you know why Obamacare had such a rise in premiums? Do you know why all these insurance carriers pulled out? Do you know why? There was a piece of Obamacare that was overturned in another omnibus budget bill. It was snuck into this omnibus budget bill by one Marco Rubio. I've told you this time and time again, but I guess, you know, this is a complicated subject. If other people explain it to you, I think I make it pretty freaking simple. It's called payments to the risk corridor, high risk pools, people like me. There was a guaranteed payment. Insurance companies were all going to pay into a high risk corridor pool. So that if one insurance company was doing okay, but another one was taking on too many sick people, that pool of insurance carriers' money, and they agreed to pay it to be part of the exchange. They wanted to be part of the exchange. They wanted to sell health care to me. So they all contributed to this high risk pool to cover the sick, to cover the elderly, to the people who were in between, the tweens. I'm a tween. I'm old enough to get sick and I'm young enough not to get Medicare. I'm a tween. So the insurance companies decided that they would pay into this pool and that they would pay another carrier if that carrier was taking on too many sick patients, but they were making a profit. Okay. So the insurance lost last year $2.9 billion more than they paid into that pool because they'd only paid in $362 million. So it was $2.5 billion short. And the administration included in the ACA, in Obamacare and the Affordable Health Care Act, a provision that said that if that happened, the government would make up the difference. To keep the exchanges operating, to keep people like me covered, to keep it growing, to keep it going, and try to pull in even more younger people, more healthy people by, expanding, broadening the pool. And how would they do that? Well, they would put a fine on people who didn't buy health insurance. Well, Marco Rubio put a provision into an omnibus budget deal that said that the government will only pay 13 cents of every dollar that was promised to these insurance companies. And without that taxpayer money, without the other 76, 77 cents that was promised them, half of the insurance cooperatives that were out there that were created under the law failed. Half of them. There's one in Oregon called One Health Republic of Oregon. They were supposed to get $7.9 million for taking the sick people. October, it closed its doors because it didn't get the payments. Two others, Win Health Partners in Wyoming and Moda Health in Washington State, pulled out of the exchanges because they didn't get what they were promised in the bill because Marco Rubio put that poison pill into a budget bill. Then all of a sudden the big insurers started pulling out. You started to see United Healthcare pull out. You started to see Aetna pull out. Why? Because they were told, go ahead and insure the people with the pre-existing conditions. Go ahead and insure the people with chronic conditions. Go ahead and take the lifetime caps off of their policies. And if you run into trouble, as we're broadening the healthy people, as we're broadening the base and driving down the cost per capita, we promise you for the first couple of years of the exchanges, we will pay you the difference. So you won't lose money by insuring the sick. Marco Rubio was this is what The Hill, back when he did it, The Hill had, the New York Times had it. It was a front page news story. This is how I know it. I read the newspaper, right? The Hill wrote, the biggest blow in the GOP's 5-year war against Obamacare. The New York Times declared this was a front page New York Times story that said, for all the Republican talk about dismantling the Affordable Care Act, one Republican presidential hopeful has actually done something toward achieving that goal. Rubio's provision has tangled up the Obamacare administration, sent tremors through the health insurance markets, and rattled confidence in the durability of the healthcare law itself. The insurers actually joined the fight. Blue Cross Blue Shield, who is still in my exchange, and that is where I get my insurance, their chief executive, Scott Sirota, he went and testified. He warned Congress that Rubio's provision, quote, will result in a massive premium increase and would cause private health insurers to become insolvent. That's why they came out of the exchanges. So when they sit there and they tell you, oh, you have no choices, and in some states there's only one, and blah, 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 and then, so we're going to do a high risk. Been there, done that. Rubio is the one that we made a promise to health insurers. They kept their side of the bargain. They joined the health exchange. They delivered all kinds of plans with all kinds of coverage. You know, they offered their bronze plan. They offered their silver plans with various deductibles, you know, whether you wanted to gamble or not. You know, I knew I didn't want to gamble, so I have $1,000 deductible. Tax subsidies to help me pay those premiums, blah, blah, blah. But you know why the premiums keep going? Because Rubio put a poison pill into the bill in 2015 and denied the insurers the money they were promised for insuring me.
For a commercial-free, on-demand, whenever, wherever listening experience, visit RandyRhodes.com for your personal premium podcast today.
Now that Trump's on his way to the White House, how long do you think it's going to take him and his Wall Street cronies to completely wreck our economy? This Trump administration is greedy, full of avarice, and awful, and the damage they're going to do to the economy will become legend. They are going to make the financial crisis of 2008 look like a pool party. And once again, working class Americans, you're going to get soaked. And that's why now more than ever, it's time to diversify your investment portfolio. Gold's low correlation with stocks and bonds can help you in times of uncertainty. Just call my friends at ITM Trading today, get a free gold kit, and learn why gold survives every government, every currency, and every economic crisis. Call ITM Trading at 1-888-OWN-GOLD for guidance from their precious metals experts. They've helped tens of thousands of people navigate this market, and they have the best reputation in this industry. So call 1-888-OWN-GOLD, 1-888-OWN-GOLD.
And the President of the United States is...
If you only knew the power of the dark side.
On the heels of the inauguration in our nation's capital, join your sexy liberal friends.
Some, I assume, are good people.
The Sexy Liberal Comedy Tour begins 2017 on Saturday, January 21st at Sidney Harmon Hall in Washington, D.C.
I am so saddened to hear that.
The election was no joke. It's real. But the Sexy Liberal Comedy Tour helps you shake off your blues and get you motivated to carry on and come together. Join Stephanie Miller.
Just very strong and very smart.
John Fugelsang.
Well, he's a very talented guy.
And comedy duo Frangela.
Both of them. I mean, this is a very talented family.
Come laugh with your sexy liberal friends in Washington, D.C.
Just tell me where and when, and I'll show up.
Saturday, January 21st, 8 o'clock p.m., Sidney Harmon Hall. Tickets available by calling 877-487-8849 or at shakespearetheater.org. Sexy Liberal Comedy Tour 2016 in Washington, D.C.
This is Tara Devlin, a.k.a. Pterodactyl from RepublicanDirtyTricks.com on the Progressive Voices channel on TuneIn. And this is my 2-minute tirade. You gotta have hobbies. And one of mine is studying conservatives the same way Jane Goodall studied primates. And in my observations, I've noted, like others have, that conservatives seem to believe that the human race is made up of inherently bad people. Not them, of course, and the people who look like them, but those others, mainly brown people, who are lounging out in our social safety net hammock. Of course, this isn't true. America doesn't even have a generous safety net in comparison to the rest of the world. The only people really taking advantage of us are the welfare queens at the top. Can you imagine the laugh the Koch brothers must have had seeing these morons they bust into Washington rallying that they were taxed enough already? When we all know what they're really having a tantrum about was that there was a black guy in the White House who they swear was bribing everyone with Obama phones or something. Never mind that most people on welfare aren't black. The conservative meme that liberals are the true racists because they lure African Americans by offering them dependency is just a modern update to that old racist trope that African Americans are like easily led children who must be taught higher moral values. So when they cut people's lifelines, they're not just working out their racist manias, but they're teaching people pride and forcing them to learn the dignity of work. An insulting notion that assumes that pride and dignity are characteristics that some people don't inherently possess. But conservatives insist they're patriots. Look at their tri-corner hats straight for tea bags. But that's just another one of their misguided lies. Because the word patriot comes from the Latin meaning fellow countryman. So you really can't say you're a patriot if you love your country, but turn your back on the people in it. This is Tara Devlin from RepublicanDirtyTricks.com. Go there and find links to my Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram communities, and keep listening for 2-minute tirades and more on the Progressive Voices channel on TuneIn. We stick together, we win.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
During the campaign, Donald Trump was asked about health care on 60 Minutes. He said, quote, "This is an un-Republican thing for me to say, but everybody has to be covered." Now, when he was asked who's going to pay for it, he said, quote, "The government's going to pay for it." Do you share that philosophy at all, that the government should guarantee health care, health insurance for every American?
Well, I don't see it as the government having to pay for it. I think we all have to contribute and be a part of it. I clearly think there's a role for the government in health care, no doubt about it. Let me say this. I believe we can and should have a system in this country where everybody can have access to affordable health care, including people with pre-existing conditions, no matter how much money they make. That's not what this law is doing. This law is failing on that front. And I think there's a much, much better system that can be put in its place. I don't know how long you want me to get into this because I'm sure there's some questions, but Obamacare came in with all this fanfare and all this promise. Remember, if you like your plan, you can keep it. That was proven the lie of the year at the time. Remember, it was going to lower premiums $2,500? They've skyrocketed since then. Remember, you're going to have all these choices. 5 states, you only have one choice. 31% of all the counties in America, one choice. That's not a choice, that's a monopoly. And the problem is the premiums are going so high, the deductibles are getting even higher, the law is collapsing. And so we've got to rescue people from the collapsing of this law and fix this problem. And so that's what I'd love to engage in. I know you've got questions, so I don't want to.
Yeah, no, let's get up and let's.
But I think there's a lot we can do to improve this problem.
You just mentioned pre-existing conditions. Let me introduce you, and please get up because I know you want to.
And then that Republican man stood up and said that, he was given 6 weeks to live with a very curable type of cancer. But, and said, I'll close my business before I buy Obamacare for my employees. And all of a sudden he got sick and he's like, oh, the lights just went on in the room. I was being gaslighted. Okay. Why are premiums going up, everybody? Why? Call and respond. Why are premiums going up? Because Marco Rubio got rid of the risk corridor payments. That's why. Why weren't we able to keep our health insurance if we were with Aetna or United or, some other plan that pulled out of the exchange? Because Marco Rubio stiffed the insurance companies on their risk corridor payments. Risk corridor payments pay the cost of the sick people that get health insurance. And this idea that we wait to get sick until we buy health insurance. Oh my God, you can only enroll during certain periods of the year. All of this is just a big, stupid lie. And of course, if you wanted to see Obamacare fail, Marco Rubio's poison pill was the perfect way to do it. It was to stiff the insurance companies from the payments that they were guaranteed when they agreed to take people with pre-existing, chronic, whatever conditions, expensive conditions to manage, or when they took people without capping their benefits. There's no lifetime caps anymore. And it raised a small 0.9% tax on people with households making over $250,000 to shore up Medicare. Everything that man said last night was a blatant lie. Everything he said was untrue. And the reason why Obamacare isn't doing anything that it was supposed to do as far as bring down premiums, as far as expand choices in the marketplace, is simply because of Marco Rubio's poison pill. Look it up. You want an article to look up? I'll give you a Washington Post one. How Marco Rubio is quietly killing Obamacare. Okay? December 14th, 2015. That was written by a conservative, by the way. Just so you know. There was a front page New York Times article as well, and it was reported in The Hill, that this was the death knell of affordable premiums, and this would be the death knell of competition in the marketplace, and insurance carriers would implode if they stayed in the exchanges, and that they were going to have to pull out. And Blue Cross Blue Shield CEO actually said, if you do this, if you stop the payments that you promised us when you said take sick people, take people with chronic conditions, take people with pre-existing conditions, take people and don't cap their benefits at all, we said okay, because you said that you would give us taxpayer dollars if we became insolvent doing it. And then they reneged because Rubio put a bill that said you get 13 cents on the dollar. Every dollar that was promised you for doing these things, for taking sick people, taking people with chronic, not capping their benefits, they only got 13 cents on the dollar. That's the dirty little secret of why the premiums are going up and why the choices are disappearing from the marketplace. His quote was, Scott Sirota, the CEO of Blue Cross Blue Shield, his quote was, Rubio's measure will result in massive premium increases and could cause private insurers to become insolvent. And that is what happened in Oregon. And that is what happened to Moda Healthcare in Washington State. And that is what happened to Win Health Partners in Wyoming. Out of business, closed their doors. They destroyed marketplaces just to have this issue. Now, if you wanted to bankrupt Medicare, repealing the ACA is a really good way to do it, because the ACA shored up Medicare. Now, if you wanted to save money in Medicare, you would negotiate down the drug prices in Part D of Medicare. If you wanted to improve choices and bring down premiums, you would restore the risk corridor payments, which is a simple matter of undoing Marco Rubio's little poison pill that he put into a budget bill in 2015. That's how easy it is to fix Obamacare. Judy in Seattle.
Hello, Randy. It's been so long.
Hey.
I just want to tell you, just right off the top, herky jerky is incredibly good.
It's so good, and there's like no carbs in it, so eat away.
Well, I'm a calorie girl, not just a carb girl. But
I don't know how you do it. I don't know.
But the last few months with my husband and everything and I'm a stress eater, and so I've gained about 25 pounds, so I have to lose that. But speaking of health care, when Obamacare, or the Affordable Care Act, I should say, came in, I was one of the first people in Washington State to sign up for it, mostly because I was about a month and a half away from canceling all my insurance, because for me and my husband on Medicare, and the $116 or something like that they take out a month out of his check, and paying for my kids, we were paying about $700 a month for health care, and I simply couldn't afford it. We couldn't afford it, just taking it right out of everything, because that was like about 60% of what the income in my household was.
Right.
And so we were taking it out of my savings, and my savings was just dropping like a rock. So we were going to end up canceling it. And when the Affordable Care Act passed, we finally had a chance to have insurance, which has allowed a lot of things to happen. I was last year, the end of last year, I was scheduled to get a knee replacement because of my degenerative osteoarthritis, and because of what happened with my husband, I've had to delay that for an indefinite period of time, because I can't be laid up, because he needs full-time care now.
What's wrong with your husband?
Well, it's a long story, but at the beginning of October, he ended up having to go in for spinal surgery because his L1 had totally collapsed. So they had to put in a what they call a titanium cage.
Oh no!
And then they had to put in the plates above and below, and then the titanium rods.
I know that operation. My sister had it.
And complications arose, so they ended up, his spinal cord got bruised, so he ended up with orthostatic hypotension, which meant that every time he sat up, he would pass out. And then because of a drug that they gave him 2 years ago, which he had a really bad reaction to, he can no longer do things like take antihistamines, painkillers, sedatives, various other things, because what happens, he ends up with delusions.
Wow.
And sometimes violent, which is what happened because of the painkillers they had to give him with this, and the sedatives, and the various other drugs. He ended up losing it again. So instead of a 5 to 7 day recovery time in the hospital and then a couple of weeks in rehab, he was in over 6 weeks in the hospital.
Oh my God! What was that bill?
And haven't got that yet. And then instead of a couple of weeks in rehab, he was over a month in rehab. And the only reason that he was home when he did come home, because he shouldn't have come home at that point, was because the insurance company, his supplemental insurance company, said, we are no longer going to pay even part of it. So if you keep him there longer, you get to pay the full bore. And so I had to bring him home because I couldn't afford that. I couldn't afford what I was paying. In rehab, the first 20 days is no cost. That's covered by the insurance.
Yeah.
The second 20 days is half.
Yeah, I know.
After that, it's full.
Right.
And so I had to bring him home. So I still haven't gotten all the bills yet, but
my God.
It's thousands and thousands of dollars.
Oh,
and now,
yeah.
And in the meantime, we were on United Healthcare,
Right.
And United Healthcare in Washington stopped, being part of the ACA.
Right.
So I had to change to Molina, but now it looks like I may not even have that. So this knee surgery I've had to put off, I may never have, because I certainly couldn't afford it on my own.
Right.
And
can you believe that this is America? I mean, we are the only industrialized nation in the world that would do this to people.
To their people. Yeah. I sit there and I keep wondering how these people, what I call the Trump masses, how they are going to look at right now.
Well, I tell you, I know the answer because we've been to this rodeo. What's going to happen is things are going to get so bad, even for them, just like this guy last night at the Ryan Town Hall, where something happens to them and then all of a sudden it affects them. And then they either do one of two things. They're brave like that man was and they stand up and say, I made a mistake, I was wrong, or they deny that they even supported Donald Trump, ever.
Yeah, and that's exactly what's going to happen. It was, I didn't vote for him.
Exactly, that's what happened with Bush. Oh, don't blame me. I didn't vote for Bush. Bull crap. I mean, you've been listening to this show long enough. You know that when I was telling them about the war, they were all pro. Let's go to war. 72% of this country wanted this war in Iraq. 72%. Okay, I was really the odd man out, and of course, Donald Trump says he was with me. Yeah, right. So. And then after the war, nobody was for it. Nobody ever supported George W. Bush. Same thing's going to happen here when they repeal ACA.
Yeah, I keep wondering what they're even saying now. It's like, they all, jumped on Hillary for being a Goldman Sachs pawn, and this man has practically why don't they just move the Goldman Sachs building into the White House?
They have.
Essentially for all intents and purposes.
Yeah, I mean, I really think that they ought to take the bull that's out in front of Wall Street and just put it right there in the garden,
Yeah, along with the giant T for Trump.
Yeah.
And it's just, and this whole idea, I don't know where people, it's like you shoot yourself in your foot and then you shoot everybody else's foot too. I don't have,
because it's an old Jewish curse. They don't even understand it. It's the curse goes something like this: may all your teeth fall out except one, and may it give you a toothache the rest of your life.
I love it.
Yeah. That's what they're wishing on people, just so that everyone can get a glimpse of how hard their lives are, or so that they can, say, I can afford the health care. What's wrong with you? Why can't you? Well, too bad for you. And being sick is now going to become a badge of shame on top of pain.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I sit there and I just keep wondering what is going to happen with me and my family.
Oh, I wonder about it too. I wonder about everybody's family. I wonder about my own family. I wonder about your family. I wonder about people who have sick children. I wonder about people who are elderly on Medicare, who are, I worry about everyone in this country. We were getting so close, and then, of course, they poison pilled it. Stop paying the insurance carriers the risk corridor payment that they were promised, paid 13 cents on the dollar instead of the full dollar, and that is why United pulled out of your exchange.
What I want to know is why, when Ryan was making these statements, which were bald-faced lies,
yes,
I heard that it was bald-faced lies. Why wasn't the networks all screaming and saying, "Excuse me, but this is a lie. This is not what happened. This isn't true."
Yeah, I don't know.
You're the only one that's saying it.
It's true.
All things Randy at randyrhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, The Randi Rhodes Show.
Hi, Truth Seekers. It's Kathy Malloy. I hope you will join us weeknights at 9 p.m. in the East, 6 p.m. in the West, only on the Progressive Voices Network. If you haven't heard the Mike Malloy Show lately, this is what you've been missing.
The most politically corrupt period in the history of this country. Forget Abscam, forget the Watergate, forget Teapot Dome, forget all of that stuff. Those were warm-up pitches. Just about every leading Republican in the country, and certainly every normal human being during the campaign, that Trump does not have the intelligence or the temperament or the understanding to deal with any of this stuff, much less to be the United States Commander-in-Chief with the launch codes, right? An example, at a September rally in Pensacola, Trump promised an act of war response. if the Iranian Navy disrespected U.S. naval vessels, he said this, quote, when they circle our beautiful destroyers with their little boats and they make gestures at our people that they shouldn't be allowed to make, they will be shot out of the water. Jesus H. bleeding Christ. Make gestures that they shouldn't be allowed to make. What would those gestures be? Donald, the middle finger? Waving their guns around? What would those gestures be that they shouldn't be allowed to make that will cause them to be, quote, shot out of the water? Less than an hour after that, he tweeted this, insulting China and linking North Korea's weapons program to what Trump perceives as unfair trade practices. Jesus Christ. He tweeted, quote, China has been taking out massive amounts of money and wealth from the U.S. in totally one-sided trade, but won't help with North Korea. Nice. I mean, all he's done is insult China, but he's also said that, we should work with China to shut down Kim Un-Crazy's nuclear program. If you remember a year ago, Trump was praising Kim Un-Crazy. Remember when he said during a campaign rally that, quote, you have to give him credit, the way he took over. And in order to consolidate his power, if you remember, Kim Un-Crazy had his uncle executed, his father's brother, put a bullet in the back of that guy's head. I don't want any kind of competition here. I'm taking over. Everybody understand that? And since then, according to U.S. intelligence, there has been just a whole parade of people who have been executed for nothing. National security analyst named John Schindler said Trump's second tweet in particular was a big mistake about China because China has been North Korea's only ally, but has so far sided with the United States against North Korea on the matter of nuclear weapons. Not for much longer. A person of normal intelligence would not, in the same tweet, bust up on North Korea and insult China. Keep pissing off Beijing, Don. As President of the United States, you'll have no channel to the Democratic People's Republic of Korea next time the Norks do something crazy. End quote. The Norks being the North Koreans, Nork. Keep pissing off Beijing, Don. One unstable leader dealing with another unstable leader can result in some real nasty stuff happening. Don't you think? Hey, Truth Seekers, listen live to The Mike Malloy Show weeknights at 6 p.m. in the West, 9 p.m. in the East, only on the Progressive Voices Network. Watch the live show video stream at MikeMalloy.com. Can't listen live? Download the podcast at MikeMalloy.com. Don't miss a minute of the fun and frivolity.
The Randi Rhodes Show is brought to you by our partners at ITM Trading. Call them at 1-888-OWN-GOLD and ask for a free gold kit. 1-888-OWN-GOLD.
For a commercial-free, on-demand, whenever, wherever listening experience, visit RandiRhodes.com for your personal premium podcast today.
Yeah, do that. This is a very expensive week for the Randi Rhodes Show. We had to buy tons and tons of equipment. I'm still shaking from writing these checks. Please do consider purchasing podcast or just support the show, and thank you very much. All right, here was Paul Ryan's conclusion last night.
I don't have a date, but that's something we're working on right now, and it's going to take us a little bit of time, but we're working on this as fast as possible. Again, because we see this law collapsing even faster this year, because we see more insurance companies pulling out, people with little or no choices, and another round of double-digit premium increases, we really feel we need to step in and provide better choices and better options as fast as possible. So we're going to move on this as quickly as we can.
First 100 days?
Yeah, it's something, definitely is a plan within the first 100 days to get moving on this legislation.
Oh, yeah. First 100 days, we're going to repeal. Okay, so here's an idea, just for those of you who, don't understand what I just explained, why the premiums went up, because we stiffed the insurance carriers in the risk corridor payments. Instead of paying them to take the sick people, instead of paying them to take the people with pre-existing, instead of paying them, as we promised we would, for joining the exchange and taking people who, maybe your genetic tests that you had, BRCA 1 and 2 are genetic tests for breast cancer, and perhaps you've taken that and it indicates that you have an 85% chance of developing breast or ovarian cancer in your lifetime. That would be a pre-existing condition. Okay, so we told all these insurance carriers, take these people, we'll pay you if you lose money insuring them. If we can't broaden the pool with enough healthy people and you lose money insuring these people, we will pay you through this high-risk corridor, this high-risk pool, okay, this high-risk payment. And Rubio stuck a poison pill in a budget bill in 2015 that reneged on that deal with the carriers who agreed to the terms that we placed on them and then reneged on the terms that we, the guarantee that we gave them for doing what they did, and they pulled off the exchange because they would go insolvent if they didn't. They were losing so much money, and he would only let the government pay 13 cents on the dollar we promised to pay. So if you wanted to fix Obamacare, all you have to do is undo the poison pill that Rubio put into the budget bill in 15. Okay? That's all you have to do. And the carriers will come back on the exchange, and the choices will increase, and the premiums will go back down. You want to keep Medicare? Medicare is not going broke. I told you, this is an argument they made in 1965 when they passed it. They said it would go broke by 1973. In 1980, they said it would go broke in 1994. In 1994, they said it would go broke in 2003. 2003, they said we would go broke, in 2028. It isn't happening. The ACA actually raised a 9/10 of a penny tax on people making over $250 in a household or $200,000 as a single to shore up Part A, the hospital payments that Medicare makes. Part D is the prescription you can negotiate with Big Pharma, except the Republicans have to undo what they did, preventing us from negotiating with Pharma. And this bullcrap he told you last night about, well, I would like people in Medicare to be able to go out into the marketplace and purchase some other insurance. They don't have to just take Medicare. You already have that. That's Part C, Medicare Advantage. Everything he said was easily disproven. And when you know this stuff, and then you listen to him. So what I would suggest is if you learned this stuff just now, today, take a minute and go rerun on CNN.com or CNN Go. Go rerun the town hall with Paul Ryan and listen to it again, knowing what you now know. It'll make your head explode. I tell you, you'll have a pre-existing, you'll have a chronic. But honest to God, you'll never look at this again in the same way. So when I watch it, I'm like so agitated, I'm going to stroke out, which is what my mother keeps calling to tell. Stop watching this! You're going to stroke yourself. And, she could be right. She could be right because this infuriates me. This just absolutely infuriates me. But if you had a plan to bankrupt Medicare, this is the way to do it. Repeal the ACA. So here's a little simple idea for conservatives who are listening. First of all, thank you for not calling me because you can't go toe-to-toe with me on this. But I will tell you thank you. Why not, instead of repeal and replace, just a thought, how about replacement and then you can repeal it? That is amazing, isn't it? Oh, duh. Oh, Rand. Oh, God. That's why I love you. Oh, that's why. This is the reason. Yeah. Why not put out a replacement plan and then repeal the one you don't like, the plan you don't like? See, because any plan that's going to include everybody from people with chronic conditions to people with pre-existing conditions to people who are already in the middle of an illness, in the middle of a pregnancy, in the middle of a recovery, a rehabilitation, whatever it is, right? Whatever it is that you're in the middle of, if they repeal it first, you're kind of screwed. But if they replaced it first and voted on the replacement, and then on the back end of that same bill, could be the same day, repealed it, but they can't because without the risk corridor payments, no insurance company can join any exchange or offer insurance to people with the high risk pools. As I said, that he keeps talking about, we've already done it. People can't do it because the premiums for the people that are high risk, like me, like people that just called in, right? So with terrible, illnesses, osteoarthritis, back surgeries, strokes, all kinds of things, right? That It's nobody's fault. These things happen. The high-risk pools charged 250% more premiums than healthy people were paying. That's number one. Number two, women paid even more than that. Number three, they capped the benefits at $75,000. You just heard Judy in Seattle, okay? Judy in Seattle's husband was in a rehabilitative setting for so long, she hasn't even gotten the bills yet because rehab is limited. Rehab has a cap on it. Instead of moving in the direction of taking the cap off, they want to put $75,000 as the cap for everything. The operation, to replace his, to put the steel cage in his back. God forbid you get an infection. You got sepsis now to deal with, all the antibiotics and the segregation and everything else for, in a germ-free environment. And then rehabilitation to teach you how to walk again. Really? I mean, $75,000, you know what that's going to cover? The surgeon. Not even the anesthesia. Maybe we should be awake, Paul, when we have our surgeries. That would save a few thousand shekels, wouldn't it? That'd save a couple of rubles. Laura in Mountain View.
Hey, Randy.
Make me laugh. It's Friday. We got 2 minutes here.
I wanted to make you laugh, but really this whole thing's been painful listening to it because I now have a chronic condition. I'm not so much the genital herpes as I am the shingles.
No, you got the... Oh, no. Oh.
Yes, I've been housebound for the last 2 weeks, and I was just thinking while listening to much worse situations what mine would have been if it wasn't for my husband's job and the Kaiser that we get.
Yeah, that's good.
My ER cost $100 when I had to go in because I couldn't pee. And I just came back from getting my latest round of antivirals and painkillers today, and it was $24.50.
Right.
So when I hear these stories, I am enraged. I am simply enraged. I mean...
all I want them to do is...
And I can't work right now.
Let's have a replacement plan first that actually shows me that it insures pre-existing chronics, everything else that has to be insured, children, every tween, and that it shores up...
I'm a tween too?
Right. And then replace it. What is wrong with that idea?
Oh, because they got a little secret. They really don't give two craps.
They want to bankrupt Medicare. That is where there are two places where there are a lot of treasury bills sitting there. Two big tranches of money, real money, treasury bills. They call them IOUs, but that's a denigration to our treasury bonds, okay? And those treasuries are sitting in the Social Security Trust Fund, in the Medicare Trust Fund, and they would like to bankrupt it. And then they have the masters of bankruptcy, the Wilbur Rosses, the Mnuchins, the Donald Trumps, who are going to enrich themselves by selling off these treasuries to the best connected, richest people who can afford to buy these last tranches of money.
Yep.
I'm telling you, this is what the oligarchs in Russia did, and that's why he loves them.
I've given up asking why. I mean, it's so clear. It's not so much that it's draining the swamp, but we do have all of the shit rising to the top.
Yes,
because you can just cherry pick them. Oh, one of those. You're
yes, but remember that
sociopath.
Remember the crap floats. It really does. And
and at least we can identify them now.
Yeah, we can see them in the bowl. All right, my friend.
We'll keep the race going to who comes first, your bunda, my shingles, or Trump's impeachment.
Okay. Good weekend, everybody.
Is not conclusive.
ExxonMobil CEO Rex Tillerson gets a grilling on climate change during Senate confirmation hearings. Court orders Exxon to comply with AG's investigation into climate science denial. 6 Volkswagen executives indicted in emissions cheating scandal. Plus,
in just 8 years, we've halved our dependence on foreign oil. We've doubled our renewable energy. We've led the world to an agreement that has the promise to save this planet.
President Obama appeals to reason on climate in his farewell address.
All of that appealing reason and more straight ahead. From BradBlog.com, I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
Our children won't have time to debate the existence of climate change. They'll be busy dealing with its effects.
Actually, they may be busy sacrificing their firstborn to Empress Ivanka. Thanks, Obama. This is your Green News Report. Okay, Desi Doyen, a protester at the Rex Tillerson confirmation hearings, I think might have had the most succinct expression of this moment.
Please don't put Exxon in charge of the State Department. Protect our children and grandchildren.
Exxon is about to be in charge of the State Department.
Yeah, it sure does look like that could be the case. On the first day of his Senate confirmation hearing to be the next Secretary of State, the CEO of ExxonMobil, Rex Tillerson, on Wednesday responded to pointed questions from Democratic senators about his beliefs on climate science and policy with a subtle level of denial. Unlike President-elect Donald Trump, Tillerson says he accepts climate change is occurring, but he said the science was, quote, not conclusive whether it's man-made, and downplayed the global scientific consensus.
The risk of climate change does exist. The consequences of it could be serious enough that action should be taken. The type of action seems to be where the largest areas of debate exist in the public discourse. The increase in the greenhouse gas concentrations in the atmosphere are having an effect. Our ability to predict that effect is very limited.
Oh, well, it's happening, but we can't predict what it's going to cause, so let's just not do anything about it.
Yeah, except the predictions of climate scientists are already coming true earlier than predicted. The Pentagon and the intelligence community have warned that climate change is a major threat to national security and international stability, but to acknowledge that climate change is man-made would require Tillerson to acknowledge Exxon's role in causing it.
And, of course, Exxon itself does acknowledge climate change, but they're incredibly vague about it.
Yeah, and speaking to that, Democratic Senator and former vice presidential candidate Tim Kaine of Virginia politely grilled Tillerson about reports that Exxon's own scientists confirmed man-made climate change back in the 1970s, but that the company instead misled the public and its investors and paid millions to fund climate denial propaganda outlets.
I'm asking you whether those allegations are true or false.
The question would have to be put to ExxonMobil.
And let me ask you, do you lack the knowledge to answer my question, or are you refusing to answer my question?
A little of both.
Yeah, a little of both, because his company is facing some very serious investigations on this front.
Yep, on the same day, Exxon lost its latest court battle to block the investigation undertaken right now by Massachusetts Attorney General Maura Healey. The court ordered ExxonMobil to comply in turning over 40 years' worth of the company's internal documents on climate change. She's investigating whether Exxon misled its investors, a violation of state law.
So you already have this conflict of interest. You've got Rex Tillerson asked a question about his own company in this hearing for his potential appointment as Secretary of State, and he can't even talk about Exxon. I think that's just a taste of the conflicts of interest we're going to see from this administration for years.
Meanwhile, in other news, Volkswagen on Wednesday pled guilty to 3 criminal charges for intentionally rigging its cars to cheat on U.S. emissions regulations. 6 high-ranking executives were also indicted on criminal charges for their roles in the scandal. The German car maker will pay $4.3 billion in civil and criminal penalties, including violations of the Clean Air Act. Finally, President Obama used his farewell address as president on Tuesday night to remind Americans of the progress that the nation has already made on climate and clean energy, and to give one last call to rise above the deniers.
To simply deny the problem not only betrays future generations, it betrays the essential spirit of this country, the essential spirit of innovation and practical problem solving that guided our founders.
Yeah, maybe so, but denial makes a whole lot more money for the fossil fuel industries. For much more on all of these stories and the ones we couldn't get to today, please check out our website at greennews.bradblog.com. Don't forget, you can download our reports anytime via Stitcher, TuneIn, or iTunes. Find us, follow us, and share us on the Facebooks and the Twitters at Green News Report. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
And this has been your Green News Report.
Thanks for all the lovely delight I found in your embrace. I'm thankful though I know it's ending all too soon.
This has been the Green News Report on the top of the hour on the Progressive Voices channel on TuneIn.